Hey friends, welcome to Yoga and Podcasts. This show explores how yoga can cross over into daily life. Join your host, me, Ashley Weber, bi-monthly as I interview mind-body luminaries worldwide, as well as a sprinkling here and there of my own solo episodes, as I do have a lot to share as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode, y'all. Joining us on today's episode is owner and operator of Vibrational Body. Please welcome back to the show, Kim Humphrey. Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, could you share, for those of us who haven't met you yet, could you share with us who you are in the world of yoga?
That's a big question. It's a big world, it's a big world of yoga. Um, First and foremost, I'm a student,
Mm-hmm.
always. I've been a student for a long time. Was doing the math the other day. Gosh, we're like getting up on 25 years.
Wow, that's
Right?
impressive.
Yeah, right? 1999. Yeah, 25 years.
Wow.
And and I was a student for a long time before I started teaching.
Mm.
Right. And so, you know, I had a whole career. I'm a speech therapist. So, as I made this career shift really from speech therapy to deciding, no, what I really want to share are these practices that have changed my life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And saved my life in some ways. I think that's most people out here teaching are teaching because they know, how
Mm-hmm.
helpful it is from that direct experience. And so I made that shift to teach, bringing all of that other, practice as a student and that whole other perspective, from really the medical field
Mm.
into teaching yoga. And so, the medical field, but speech therapy is so interesting because it is really a one-on-one modality,
Oh.
right? Where we're working one-on-one with a client to accomplish goals, you know? And as I kind of shifted to teaching yoga, I found myself teaching larger groups, but really seeing those individual needs,
Mm.
So as I made that shift, shifting from student to teacher in the world of yoga, um, really finding that foundation that everything really comes down to the state of our nervous system,
Mm. Mm.
of just how does everything function? Like, what state actually are we in, and what's most helpful,
Yeah.
in our practice and in life. Coming from that speech therapy perspective, I focused on feeding therapy,
Oh.
right? So feeding and swallowing, same anatomy as speech. And so as I worked with kids and babies, to learn how to eat,
Mhm.
it was so clear that essentially what we were doing was creating positive connections with food,
Oh, wow.
right? Positive experiences where their nervous system was in a state of, we could say, rest and digest,
Oh, yeah. That's so.
right? We often hear about fight or flight,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's our sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
That's how most of us are living. And most adults have found a lot of coping mechanisms
Mhm.
to maybe find ways to hide that, or just to kind of compensate as we move through the day. Um, It's very clear with children. You know, they don't hide that. And when we're doing something as basic as eating, right? This really foundational skill, it became really clear that no new skill was going to be learned, you know, when we're in this state of fight or flight, and that actually the digestive system isn't working.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's turned off. So our parasympathetic nervous system is often colloquially called rest and digest, right? Because if we're running away from a tiger, there is no reason for our body to spend energy digesting food.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right? We may not be around to use it later. Our body is going to put all of its energy towards running or fighting. And it's only when we feel safe that our system shifts to say, oh, yeah, we're probably going to be around later. We might need this energy, right? We're going to eat, right? We're going to digest. We need that food. We need that energy. And so as I switched into being a teacher, I really wanted to share Yoga Nidra. You know, that was the practice that had shifted my whole kind of mindset, my whole kind of experience as a human, you know. And it became really clear really fast that what we were doing actually is shifting the nervous system. You can hear it happen at the beginning of a class. Bloop, 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 bloop. All the little valves turn on. People's digestion start turning on. I try to say something about it at the beginning of class because people get very, you know, self-conscious about bodies making noises. But it's a really clear sign that the room is settling.
So rest and digest, isn't it where the blood flows to the stomach, and then flight or fight is where the blood flows to the extremities? Is that
how? Yeah, that's one of the physiological things that happen. Yeah, for sure. Definitely blood flow, but then also all of those gastric juices, you know, all of that. Yeah, all of those different valves start working.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, as I kind of see myself in this world of yoga, like just to get back to your original question, you know, I really just see myself as someone who's helping to share the tools that help us get back to that place of safety and connection, you know, so that we can learn new skills, so that we can, you know, be fully human and connect.
Oh, I love that. And I love that your emphasis on the feeling safe. I think that is profound. And I love hearing how two seemingly separate professions like speech therapy and teaching yoga and yoga nidra, how those seemingly seem very separate, but how they're very, you know, going back to the vibration and the nervous system, it's very, there's a lot of similarities. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, for sure. It goes so deep, right? It's like you'd think that the connection is through the sound healing, and it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that outer vibrational piece of sound and hearing and all of that. And then, yeah, that very inner vibrational piece of our own nervous system, our own state of being.
So Kim, how did Vibrational Body come about?
Well, I was offering these practices, right? I decided that after, like 15 years of practicing yoga and gathering these tools that were so helpful for me, decided that this is what I wanted to share. So I made that transition, right, from speech therapy into really teaching and sharing. Yoga Nidra was the main practice that I wanted to share, but also movement practices and then sound healing as well, this kind of other aspect of sound and vibration that was coming together. And with that foundation of the nervous system, from a yogic perspective, we often really talk about the nervous system as the energy body, right? And then my background spiritually is Tibetan Buddhism, right? And so we talk about the energy body. In some way you could say that's the Sambhogakaya, right? So these 3 bodies of a Buddha, the vibrational body of a Buddha. So as I was talking to a dear friend who's done all of my graphic design, and saying, you know, this is what I want to do. This is the website that I want. And the name was Sambhogakaya Sounds. And she said, tell me about that. What do you mean? And I said, well, you know, she also studies Buddhism, so she knew what I meant. But she said, what do you mean by that? You know, and I said, well, you know, the vibrational body of a Buddha. And she said, that's what you need to call it, because no one can Google search Sambhogakaya, you know, but people will be able to search vibrational body. And it feels like this very accessible, right? This very accessible term that we can understand and actually all recognize that we've experienced. You know, sometimes when we say energy body, or we use Sanskrit words, you know, like Sambhogakaya, you know, it's like, well, that feels really far away.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we all experience the vibration of our world and our mind and our own body. And so, vibrational body kind of encompasses all of the things that I'm putting out into the world, that I'm sharing.
I love it. I always think of, when I think of your name, I think of cymatics, like the water and the bowl and then the vibration.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, you just tacked on body because, you know, yoga and moving the body. But I love knowing that there's a Buddhist reason behind it from your practices.
Well, and I love that understanding of the cymatics too, right? Those studies where vibration really shapes physical matter, because we can see that outside of ourselves, but at the same time, that's what's happening inside of ourselves too. So in a way, that really is that understanding of ourselves as that vibrational body. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Very cool.
What's something fascinating that you find about your own work?
I find it all fascinating. I mean, I think like most, probably every yoga teacher, you know, everyone who's out here sharing these practices, we are only here sharing them because they've been so helpful for us. You know, because we've had that transformation, we've had some realization or recognition or shift or, you know, change in ourselves and our lives, and we want to share that. And so everything that I'm sharing comes from something that I found fascinating and followed, and now want to pass on for sure.
I love it. For those who are unfamiliar with Yoga Nidra, could you care to share like what that is, just to refresh people?
Yeah, sure. So Nidra translates to sleep, right? So Yoga Nidra, it's a guided meditation into the state of Yoga Nidra, you know, which we could say is the state of awakened sleep. I like that translation, this state in between, where actually the mind and the body are in a deep state of rest and actually asleep, and yet we remain connected to this aspect of ourselves that is awake and aware across all states of consciousness, including sleep. So it's a very deep and profound meditation, and it truly is whatever you need it to be. As an herbalist, you'll maybe appreciate this description of Yoga Nidra as an adaptogenic practice.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Where this class of herbs, adaptogens, they have lots of properties, but they meet our system as we're showing up. And from what they have, they give us what we need. And so Yoga Nidra is like that too. That if we come to the practice and actually need sleep, you know, our mind and our body will just kind of take over and give that to us. And how sweet, you know, how wonderful. And then, you know, as we get more and more rested, all of a sudden, you might get these glimpses or these longer kind of rests in this very open, peaceful state between.
I love that analogy of an adaptogenic practice. Yeah. You shared this, so I've taken your classes, and I remember in one class you shared this idea, or it's scientifically proven, but the heartbeat or the pulse of the earth, and it just blew my mind. I never heard of it before your class. Could you share a little more about that?
Yeah, I can share some, and I am also very comfortable saying I know that I don't have a full understanding.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we were talking about the Schumann resonance, which is sometimes called the heartbeat of the Earth.
Okay.
And it's of the Earth, but it's also really the electromagnetic field around the Earth. So my understanding is that it is created by lightning striking the atmosphere and reverberating into the Earth, and it creates kind of this repeated, very slow, deep frequency in the electromagnetic field of the Earth, and that we need that for optimal cellular health, right? So that this kind of vibration within our atmosphere is just something that all life needs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And they don't have that on Mars, right? Or
well, no, because they don't have our atmosphere, right? And so that's something that's really special within kind of the atmosphere of Earth. And my understanding, again, is that we really discovered our need for it in modern culture when we sent astronauts into space, because they were outside of our atmosphere. They were disconnected. We actually know quite a bit about vibration in Western science. You know, NASA did all sorts of tests when the astronauts came back, and it was one of the things that they recognized, that they didn't have this this influence, right, of this frequency, and that we actually need it. And so now all of our space shuttles have Schumann resonance generators.
That's
right?
so wild.
So I sometimes will tell people, this is probably how I said it in that class, that you know, that is working. That Schumann resonance generator is working in the same way that a sound healing modality like the Nepalese tradition I offer, or other music or music therapy is working, right? And that vibration is a physical movement. And so, yeah, how can you just have this Schumann resonance generator, you know, this vibration generator on a space shuttle, and it does something, and it's because it physically pushes the air, right? And so that's what sound does for us too.
So cellular health in terms of sound vibration, could you elaborate on that? Like, what does that mean?
It kind of goes back to cymatics, right? Like what you were saying about cymatics, and that vibration shapes matter.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so my understanding, again, there may be a deeper understanding or more to this, but my understanding is that when the astronauts came back, their cells were denaturing, they called it. So like the cellular membrane wasn't coming together in the way that it needs to for optimal health. And so yeah, that in a way they needed that vibration to kind of create this shape in the body.
That takes, like, I've always loved sound meditation. I've always loved it, but I never really knew it could help on a cellular level until just now.
Yeah, right? And I think it's really helpful for us, because this is where it's so fascinating too, when we talk about this in-between state of the vibrational body. It's like, well, it's not space, right? There's something there, but it's not matter, right? It's like this in-between, very malleable state that is kind of this most subtle level that we can measure or that we can observe. And Western science is about observation, right? And so it's kind of our last in to energy, you know, to really being able to observe it. And so I think it starts to make sense to us when we're like, oh yeah, I can see that cymatic study. I can see that vibration makes a shape in the sand. Oh, and now I can understand that that's happening, right?
Yeah.
Inside my body. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's profound. And there's something about it that feels also mysterious, though, you know, like it's not matter, it's not space, it's that in between, or it's something else. That's very trippy. I love it.
It's a fun space to play in.
I love it. So how can sound, vibration, and yoga work together to help us exactly?
Well, sound, vibration, and yoga are already working together. You know, they're not separate. Sanskrit is a vibrational language, right? It is meant to. Every sound actually has an internal effect.
True, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and so we chant bija mantras, seed syllables, right? For these different energy centers, right? That sound vibrates in different places in the body, in different ways, right? And so that's a part of every Sanskrit word, right? And so it's really the foundation. I mean, when we say that the creation of the universe, right, is the sound Om.
Om, yeah.
Right? That's really, in my understanding, and this one very, limited way I think of thinking of it is that exactly what we were saying before, of just that vibration creates matter. It shifts matter.
It shifts matter.
Right? And so it is that state before or after.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, we could say yoga is sound.
Yoga is sound. That totally makes sense. And I thought you were going to say something like, we're holding poses and we're moving energy and then we play the music on top of it. But I mean, yes, that happens too. But I like how you just took it right to the core of yoga is sound.
Well, sound is the foundation for this whole physical world. Vibration is that state, and that's where it starts to get so cool and so fascinating. Of just when we start to go more and more subtle into the actual experience of this physical form, we find vibration, right? And I love, right, coming from the scientific, neurological, kind of medical background of speech therapy, right?
Yeah.
Studying sound from this other perspective. I really love how that comes together, and how you can really see that we're saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing. So as we go back into our own experience, right? If we're in a yoga pose or in meditation, right? And we're feeling into sensation. What we're feeling into is vibration, actually.
Oh, wow.
Right?
I
Because
never
we
thought
have
of
the
it like
label
that.
of a sensation.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to use pain as an example, because chronic pain is something that I worked with for a long time with Yoga Nidra. And you can go into a sensation in your body and recognize, okay, there's pain there. But then if you take that label off, well, what's actually happening underneath, right? What's the sensation that's happening? Oh, is it buzzing? Is it sharp? Is it moving? Is it still? Is it hot? Is it cold? And you start to feel a shape or a texture or a vibration to what's happening. And this is where I find it so fascinating, those neurological studies that have come out that show actually that every thought is something like 5 milliseconds behind the actual experience. That what our mind is doing is labeling our vibrational experience.
Wow.
Right? And so that is the direct experience. And then we create meaning about the direct experience. Right? But it truly feels to me that this is where, and maybe this is also just the Kashmir Shaivism perspective, a version of, or a tradition of Yoga Nidra that I've studied deeply, but that as we take all of these limbs of yoga kind of deeper in and into the inner experience of it, whether it's the inner experience of a physical pose, the inner experience of breath work, the inner experience of our senses or meditation, or I left out the ethical foundation, but even our inner experience of the yamas and niyamas, right? Our inner experience of ethics. It all kind of comes down to, we could say, spanda, right? Or this vibration that births the universe moment to moment. It pulses in and it pulses out. And when we get really deep and quiet and still, right, and regulated in deep meditation, every experience can feel like that. Wow. Right? And so yeah, vibration is yoga.
Wow. I never thought about sensation being vibration, because I definitely make a point to, like in yin yoga, you come out of a yin yoga pose, you pause and you check in with the sensation. And yes, there is vibration. I just never thought of it in that way until just now. So thank you for shining a light on that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great way to look at that. Besides, well, I mean, you've already gave some examples of how we can interact with vibration in our sound vibration in our daily life. Like, it's all vibration. But, like, could you elaborate on maybe some more ways we can interact with sound vibration in daily life?
Yes, because we do. Right? We do. Everywhere we go, we're interacting with vibration. I like to say we are vibrational beings in a vibrational world, right? And so that inner vibration is constantly interacting with the outer vibration.
Yeah.
We actually don't have a boundary or a barrier to vibration.
Oh.
Right? If we're saying, and I am, that Western science is, and so are yogic teachings, that vibration is a physical movement, right? In Western science, we say it's a mechanical waveform. Just a fancy way to say it. It's a physical movement, right?
Yeah.
Vibration is physically pushing the air molecules, one into the next, into the next, into the next, until that wave of pressure or vibration reaches your skin, and it moves right through you, just like vibration moves through water.
Wow.
Right? We are water. So we don't have a way to stop it. We don't have a barrier to it, which in some ways we want, because we get a lot of information from our world. You know, that vibration of our bones is actually a big way that we hear, is through bone conduction, right? Our whole body works vibrationally.
It's so wild. You're right. You're taking me back to middle school. I hadn't thought about that in years.
I know, right? Grad school for me, but right? We learn about how we hear, right? How we interact with our world. And so vibration, when it meets another vibration, it doesn't crash. This is a really malleable state. It shifts, right? So we are constantly shifting with the vibrations in our world as we move through our day, through this property of entrainment, right? Vibrations will entrain to or shift to be in phase with, or we could say in harmony with, the vibrations around it, right? And so we can shift our environment. And we actually do this. We actually work with vibration in a lot of ways. We can just be more intentional with it. We listen to, amped up music when we want to work out.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to speed up our vibration so that we want to move faster.
Yeah.
Right? We come home from a long day of work or traffic, and we want to put on soothing music. We want our system to entrain with something slower and calmer. Right? And so these are already things we do, but they're also things that we can do really intentionally. We could recognize an inner vibrational state in traffic, and rather than turning on the news or loud music, we could put on something softer and regulate with it, right? Yeah. We can also do that with our breath. Anytime we're calling on or leaning on a breath practice, right? When we're out in the world, we are regulating that vibration. And then we just have the really beautiful, simple, and profound classical meditation on sound, which is not a meditation, which is where you just follow sound into silence, where it dissolves and where it arises from. So actually all sound will take us into that space beyond where it dissolves and where it arises from. So we can do that with an intentional instrument like a singing bowl or a musical instrument, but we can also do that with the sound of someone's laughter. We can do that with the sound of the ambulance passing by. We can do that with the world around us.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I realize I can visually see all our sound waves today. Like, you know, as I'm recording this, I'm like, wow, it really is all around us. It's just wild.
It is us.
It is us. It's us.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to those who want to get into this field of study that is, well, you encompass a lot of things, but basically what you're about, like yoga nidra, mind body, sound vibration, within your work as a teacher, like where's could be a starting path for someone?
Gosh, you know, I think the starting path honestly is curiosity. You know, just like, where are you curious? Because these are such vast fields,
yes.
you know, of just study and knowledge, you know, that, yeah, what are you drawn to? You know, I came to this through a very scientific path, you know, for a couple of decades now, right? And then also through a very personal path of healing. And so really, you know, my curiosity led me to the things that were helpful for me. Right? And so I think everyone will have that path. Generally, find a teacher.
Oh, yes.
Right? Find a teacher. You know, there are so many ways to learn. There are so many avenues to learn through. And there's also so much noise out there.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much marketing that can be disguised as information as well. You know? And so I actually see that quite a bit.
Good point.
In the world of just sound healing. You know, it's like that marketplace starts to really overlap then with what are we learning? You know, what are we actually learning about? What is helpful? You know, and so when I say find a teacher, you know, just in terms of kind of the paths that I've gone down, well, there was the very formal, you know, master's degree, you know, the very formal, like, continuing education in the Western system. But then it feels very much, you know, once I decided that actually I did want to teach yoga and yoga nidra specifically, I've actually been thinking about it in these terms, that actually what I've really done over the last 10, 12 years is put together my own master's. You know, there wasn't a school to go to for this. You know, there was a teacher that I wanted to study yoga nidra with. There was a teacher that I wanted to study Buddhism with. There was a teacher that I wanted to study sound healing with. And it's been my experience that I generally haven't been able to get everything that makes my own understanding whole from one teacher. You know, that the lineage of sound healing that I study with my teacher Seren, based in Boulder, he shares the beautiful, rich cultural oral history and the spiritual tradition. You know, that these bowls and this tradition of sound healing with the metal Himalayan bowls comes from. And I'm so grateful for the background in acoustics and sound science that I have to kind of back up that understanding from my own Western mind.
Yes,
you know,
that makes
like
sense.
This way of learning that I've learned really needed that information for my own understanding to feel more whole. You know, and so yeah, you know, I think there are a lot of trainings out there and a lot of information, and as long as you continue to follow your own curiosity and what feels helpful and interesting for you, and then find those ways to kind of make your understanding feel more whole, you know, then it's the only way I know how to go down this path.
Yeah, yes, I think
also
that's
with
wise.
A lot of humility that just we will never know it all, right? There's always more to know, and that the most important learning and knowing is your own experience.
And I like how in the beginning you said, like, you are a student. And I think that goes back to curiosity. And I mean, I would not trust any teacher who also wasn't being a student actively. You gotta feel both sides. But I would say, I think it's fair to say, I know I'm a seeker. I think you are a seeker, perhaps. I think once you're on this path of like searching for that, you know, whatever it is in the mind-body world that you want, the teacher will show up. Don't you feel like that's been your experience?
It's definitely been my experience. It's definitely what they say.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean,
when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Really, yeah.
You know, sometimes we think we're ready and we're not, so we're waiting for a little while. But,
I've been there.
But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can we find you out in the world and online?
Well, let's see. I am mainly teaching in person these days at Mirabal Austin and at a couple of recovery centers around Austin at Driftwood Recovery and Paradigm Treatment Center. And I'm really looking for ways to share more with communities. So I have a wonderful event coming up with you.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to share sound and yin yoga with you in March at Casa de Luz. And then private sessions, private sessions for sound healing, for yoga nidra. And you can find me on my website. That's a really easy way to find me, just vibrationalbody.com. And there you'll see all of the trainings that I'm offering this year as well. So I'm really honored to teach for the Atma Buddhi School. So my teacher Saren's School of Vibrational Sound Therapy. I'm teaching level 1 and 2 trainings here in Austin this year. And also up in the school as well, if you want to come see me in Boulder. I'll be there in March. And then also teaching a yoga nidra training. So I'm really excited to get to share all of these practices. You can find them on my website, or you can find me on Instagram, vibrational.body. And there's a Facebook page too, but same name, right?
Yeah.
Vibrational Body. It's all under that umbrella. So.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing everything today, all your knowledge, your wisdom. And you're just one click away from connecting to Vibrational Body and Kim. All that was mentioned is linked in the show notes. So check out Kim and Vibrational Body. Check out our event at Casa de Luz on March 29th. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, Ashley.
Thanks. If this episode resonated with you, please share Yoga and Podcast with just one friend who you know will love it. Another way you could help the show grow is to rate and review it. I'll even send you some podcast stickers with a love note. So after you rate and review the show, please drop me a message with your mailing address and I'll hook you up. Thank you for your support. We could not grow without you. And we have grown in the past 4 years. We have grown because of you. So you have my undying love. If you want to say hi, our email address is yogaandpodcast@gmail.com. The and is spelled out. YOGAAND podcast@gmail. Please follow us on Instagram at Yoga and Podcast. We are on TikTok. The handle is also Yoga and Podcast. When you follow us, we follow right back on those platforms. Until next time, thank you for listening.